It's about being ourselves instead of having an opinion about ourselves. It's a totally different disposition. One is from the inside of that central channel looking out, and the other is seated out there in those memories trying to look back in from a place of distortion to begin with. And it's riddled with guilt and shame and fear and angst and obsessive thinking, etc. It's all about realigning, connecting with nature and connecting with the true essential self. And a healing happens as a byproduct of that. Hello again. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sue Morter, and I am thrilled today to bring an old friend to you whom I've known for years and who I know is in this for all the right reasons and a brilliant individual and just a all-around good person to know. So joining me today is Eileen McKusick, and she has become a respected researcher, a pioneer in the field of biofield science. And so you guys know that I'm going to be all over that, right? So Eileen developed the Biofield Tuning method, a vibrational approach that uses tuning forks to rebalance the body's energy system and restore coherence on physical, emotional, mental levels all around. She has a groundbreaking book called Tuning the Human Biofield. She shares in this her insights on how sound and vibration interact with the energy field to enhance health and well-being. And so I'm going to bring her in just a second, but I just want to say that, I have loved getting to know Eileen. We've had some beautiful health discussions when health was a very big moment in our world. As COVID was happening, we were breaking it down and taking a look at what really was going on and what needed to happen. And I just have a real appreciation for her, on top of her just being a great individual. So I would welcome you to help me welcome Eileen McKusick to the show. Eileen, welcome, my dear.
Nice. Thanks so much, Sue, for that lovely introduction. And hello,
Yes.
everybody.
Easy to do. Yes.
Mhm.
So what I would love to do, of course, is just have you share your perspective on the biofield, the energy field around the body, through the body and around the body, and its role as an energetic blueprint for health and alignment. And as we get into that, I'd love for you to just share, how did you get interested in this? I was born into this world of bioenergetics, and the field was dinner table conversation for me. But what happened in your world?
Hmm. Well, let's see. Let's talk about the biofield first and how I've come to see it. And the way that my experience with the biofield has really been one of discovery, where I started using tuning forks 29 years ago in a part-time massage therapy practice that I was doing. And of course, I had no idea what I was doing. This is the very dawn of therapeutic tuning forks, thanks to John Beaulieu and Jonathan Goldman. And I just started experimenting with them. And they absolutely surprised me. You hear tuning fork, you're like, how exciting can that be? But what I love in life, and I think lots of people also love this, whether we realize it or not, is to be surprised and to be curious about something. And so the tuning forks were so intriguing to me that I never stopped playing with them, and I still experiment with them almost every single day. In fact, my first grandchild was born last night, and I gave her her first tune-up this morning, and that was complete discovery because I've
Uh-huh.
never tuned a newborn before.
Yeah.
So that's why I've stayed on this path, is because there has been so much about it that I didn't expect.
Mm.
And what it revealed to me with the sound, and basically I use them like sonar, or radar, or lidar, or ultrasound, the way that we use sound waves to bounce off things and come back with information, really to help us see the unseen. And what
Mm.
I discovered is that the atmosphere around our body, that I originally called the aura or the human energy field and now call the biofield, actually had a very specific anatomy and physiology that was the same from person to person. So just like our interior anatomy is all pretty much the same, so is the anatomy of our field. And so that's sort of been my primary work, has been sort of mapping and understanding what this field is. And so basically what I came to see over time both through my own clinical observation, but also esoteric literature and also a deep dive into the literature of mainstream medicine. When I
Mm.
discovered the term biofield, I ended up discovering our colleague Shamini Jan and a number of other people like Beverly Rubik who are already defining the biofield. Because when I wrote a master's thesis back in 2010, and in my literature review, I was looking in PubMed for words like aura and human energy field and not finding anything and wondering how on earth I was going to write an academic treatise on an esoteric topic. But the biofield really bridges these two worlds. And so what I came to see is that our body has an electrical system that nobody tells us about. Well, it's the sort of thing where we're missing the forest for the trees. So most people get that your heartbeat is electric, that your brain waves are electric, that your blood is carrying a charge. More and more people are learning about fascia and its conductivity and information and light that it is acting in the body. And so, what this all points to is actually the flow of current through our body, electrical current. And anything that has an electrical current running through it has a magnetic field around it. And the human body is no different. So, this energy and energy medicine is electricity. It is electricity. It
Mhm.
is Chi is the same thing, except chi recognizes the magnetic aspect of the current flow, whereas in our world, we're just stuck in the electric. Even the
Mhm.
people who are studying consciousness in the brain are all about electric activity, but they're missing the magnetic field aspect. And we
Mhm.
know that anything that has electric current has a magnetic field. We all learned that in, middle school probably,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I would say that the biofield is our electrical system in its entirety, the energy that beats your heart, that animates your brain waves, and the magnetic field that surrounds it. They're two sides of the same coin, and you really can't separate them. And then so what is it? I would say that it is your sense of self. It is your I. It is where all of your memories are stored. And this is what I discovered is that our memories are stored in standing waves in our biofield. And this
Mhm.
anatomy mapping that I've been doing is sort of like a map of the mind. And we have different frames of mind that impact different parts of our body. So that when you develop a sore right hip, it's very likely you've been overthinking and overdoing and activating that part of your mind, which in the biofield anatomy is off of your right hip. So this was just clinical observations of people coming in with oftentimes with some kind of physiology issue, right? That must have been like something wrong with my body. Help me fix it. Uh,
Mhm.
or just a general sense of stuckness. And this is all related to the way electricity is flowing through the body and the field. And so I would also go so far as to say that your biofield is also what we call your soul. And that because when you're alive, your light is on, you're moving around, and all that electricity is moving through you. And then when you die, your light goes out. And you actually lose mass when you die, right? They've weighed people before and after
Mhm.
that. And that's been my observation in the field is that it actually has mass. When I'm moving tuning forks through it, I encounter what feels like mass. So to me, this whole idea of the biofield really bridges science and spirituality because it is your inner light. It is eternal and it is biological because it's animating your biological organism. Yeah. So that is what I would say the biofield is.
Well, that works. So when we talk about consciousness being, um, overarching beyond the physical body, within the physical body, and how this consciousness is flowing through our system all the time, I see this physical body as a sort of a filtering mechanism that has different layers of consciousness. Different aspects of us are contained in different areas of the body, and I know that this is sort of what you were alluding to when you were saying about the right hip and something happening, pulling us up into our heads, thinking too much. So there are correlations to what you're finding in the field, to different aspects of consciousness that are challenged. And is that an accurate way to describe what you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a place where our vibrational patterning is incoherent or out of alignment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, some basic questions that people are going to start wondering right away is, so if I'm working with tuning forks and now I'm starting to listen to the field, basically as a translator, this tuning fork will give me feedback as to how the energy is flowing in different frequencies of my overall system. I know they're going to wonder, can I do this on myself? And I know you haven't even gotten into describing anything about that yet, but just to set their minds at ease, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's definitely all kinds of different ways that you can do it on yourself. I'll just demonstrate a couple. So, this particular frequency is 222 hertz. So, the most simple way that you can work with tuning forks is to just sit and listen to them. It's just a tone generator. It's like listening to a bell or a bowl or a gong or even wind chimes, right? And what does it do? It captures your attention and brings you to stillness. So this is the whole aim of sound healing, regardless of what the instruments of choice are. It's to bring people into a relaxed, aware presence where you're regulated, and that's where health happens. So the more that we bring ourselves into a present, regulated state, the healthier we're going to be. And modern living is always putting us into various states of dysregulation, pressure, drama, difficulty, time pressure, money pressure being really big ones that can really dysregulate us. And so just sitting and listening to a frequency like this. So this work is like a bell. It's just a presencing invitation. So I'll just activate it a few times. So when you sit holding a fork like this, and you're not just listening with your ears, you're kind of listening with your whole body. It's
Mhm.
impacting the way that water is expressing in your body. Coherent sound inputs help to structure the water in our body and add energy to it, right? So the work of Gerald Pollack, the fourth phase of water, recognizing that the water in the body is a plasma. It's part of
Mhm.
your electrical system. And the more voltage, the stronger the charge and the stronger the signal. Again, the more vibrancy and health and vitality and presence you have. So one way is to just sit and meditate with it. Just sometimes meditating without anything, our thoughts just go. But if we can just call ourselves, just back to attention kind of again and again and become aware of our breath. And right, I think this is, speaking to awakening, Sue. I think a big part of awakening is this coming to our senses, getting out
Mm.
of our thinking mind and being really present with what we hear, what we smell, what we sense.
Mhm.
That's a big part. It's just like coming to our senses. And so this is great for that. If you want to use a weighted tuning fork on yourself, this is a sonic slider, and this is a fork that is tuned to the Schumann resonance, the Earth's sort of heartbeat background electromagnetic pulse. And that's around 7.83 hertz. And that's our brain in a very calm, quiet, present state as well. So this is 7.83 times 12, 93.96 hertz. And when you activate this, you can just put it on yourself. So it's the same idea of this kind of bring yourself to attention, right? Like babies, cats love the sonic slider.
Mhm.
Most frequencies of weighted forks you can put on yourself for a little while and then you kind of get tired of them. But there is something about this particular frequency that the body just loves. Like it's like a cat's purr. And
Mhm.
the body's just like, ah.
That's
Uh,
right.
and so you can use this, you can slide it on yourself like dry brushing. If
Mhm.
anybody dry brushes, it's all this sort of sweeping motion. This is like
Mhm.
a vibrating dry brush, and it gets lymph and blood and electricity moving.
Mhm.
So that's another way. And then you can go so far as to when you become a practitioner, because we have a training program, you learn how to do distance sessions on yourself, where you can perform a whole biofield tuning session and we do adjustments too, like we call them adjustments, and we do magnetic field adjustments, um, where you can learn to do that on your own hologram. Basically, you just imagine that you are lying on your treatment table and you're able to treat yourself. So those are just some ways. There's also, I've made a lot of recordings. There's a lot of free ones on YouTube and in my store. So you can listen to recordings that I've made. And that's a way to do it on yourself too, just, with headphones.
Just being in the vibration of it. And what happens in terms of how the body responds to and integrates? Can you just share a little bit about the mechanism of here's this vibrational tone I'm generating outside the body, and it's impacting this field, and the ripple of that frequency happens through that system. What happens from there?
Mhm. Well, I think it's very simple. I think that it's really working with the physics principles of resonance and entrainment. So I'm just going to describe that. It's something that's used in music therapy. So in music therapy, if somebody is listless and low, you're not going to play them high energy music right away because they're not going to resonate with it. So you start off with selections that match their state, that resonate how they are. So that they're like, "Oh, yeah, I feel that," right? I can open to that.
Hmm.
And then they will gradually shift the musical selections to move into something that's more upbeat, more energized, and they will entrain people into a more coherent, upbeat state through these principles of resonance and entrainment. So the tuning forks do the same thing. They will when I hold a tuning fork, let's say somebody has a really sore shoulder, when I hold a tuning fork over that area, the waves that the body is giving off are incoherent. They might be sharp, they might be loud and wonky sounding. And so the tuning fork will initially resonate with that in the overtones and undertones. It has a conversation with the body. It listens to the body. But as I continue to activate the tuning fork and bring it into that area, because it is producing a strong, coherent rhythm, it will entrain the body into a more coherent expression. So, this is a law of physics that a strong, coherent signal will overtake and entrain a weak, incoherent signal. So, it basically listens to the body, resonates with it, empathizes with it, allows us to kind of hear what is going on. And then it just kind of gently brings it into this more coherent, relaxed expression.
Yeah. So if the dissonant or the incoherent or dissonant energies are being generated by, let's say, someone's general disposition, the general come from their general belief system that is one of unworthiness or one of agitation, or maybe it's agitation in reaction to a felt sense of unworthiness or whatever it may be. How deeply do the tuning forks impact the level of subconscious thinking or the held frequencies that come from these inherent premature conclusions that we've drawn about ourselves in the first 5 years of our lives, where we're interacting and reacting to this movie that we've found ourselves in, and drawing conclusions about who we are and how we fit in. um, can you just speak a little bit about how the tuning fork creates coherence in the field, and it dissolves a dissonant frequency that's emanating in that field? And what if the subconscious is constantly, you know, radiating it and transmitting it back into the field, creating the distortions that we know are related to the symptom patterns of on mental, emotional, psychological, or physical levels?
Yeah.
What happens there?
What a great question, because it's that really gets to the heart of it, Sue, what you brought up. So this is where the biofield approach is really useful. So I'm showing a torus. It's a little metal toy of a
Yes.
torus. It's a sphere with a central channel down the middle. And so this is how I see the biofield, as a torus. And having mapped it, what I discovered is that our memories are stored in this magnetic field in a very specific way. So, because everything that happens in our body is an electrical impulse, everything we see, think, feel, respond to is all an electrical impulse. And so, as we have our experiences, what I see is that they get fed almost like there's little, output, EEG output of our vibe quality goes
Yeah.
out into our field. So, just like the hair that's newest is closest to your head, and the hair that's oldest is furthest away, it's the same in the biofield. So as we generate our experiences, they get stored in standing waves in our field. And so if somebody is 60, I'm going to find memories that were generated when they were 30 about 3 feet away from them, and the field extending about 6 feet front and sides, right?
Mm-mm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and in this outer membrane, because you definitely feel the membrane of the bubble of the field with the forks, I find memories from gestation. Just inside that is birth. And then it's really like dropping a needle on an album and reading the vibrational record of someone's life. Their thoughts, their feelings, their reactions, their trauma responses are all encoded vibrationally in the field in this very specific anatomy. So, what I've observed is that feelings of guilt and shame and low self worth are stored in the sacral center on the right side. And I can go in and I can find where those beliefs were formed. I've actually there's a real frequency signature and pattern to false beliefs. And so the one of self-worth is so interesting, Sue, because what I really found was that the kernel of pretty much every dysfunction on any level in people was a belief that they weren't worthy.
Mm.
But that was the root of almost everything, because if we believe we're not worthy, then we're going to constrict and block flow.
Right.
We're not gonna let the energy flow into that place, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it gets repeated and reinforced as we go through our lives. Like, if you form that belief at 5, you're gonna keep reinforcing it through your thoughts, through your actions, through your beliefs as you age. You're gonna create wiring that is just
Yeah.
all around that story that isn't true, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's worthy. Like, the worthiness thing is like a mind virus that everyone has been infected with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think regardless of what you're struggling with, you have to dig really deep and be like, how am I believing that I'm not worthy? So
Mm-hmm.
the tuning forks are a pattern interrupt. We come in and we find that incoherent thought form, that belief, that story, and reflect it back to the body. Right? I'm just going to hang out in this pocket of information where these overtones and undertones are distorted and reflecting this belief. And I'm going to let your organizing intelligence have a reflection of itself. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
we all know that if we haven't seen a mirror in a while and we get in front of a mirror and your hair is a mess and you have a seed in your teeth, your first impulse is to bring yourself to order. And our body's organizing intelligence, the part that heals a cut without you having to think about it, uses this reflection of distortion and it goes, wow, that's not right. That's out of tune, because we're
Mm-hmm.
designed for harmony. The cosmos is harmonious, and our factory settings as humans are for harmony and health. That's just how we're made. Like, we don't have to go out and get it. We just have to dial it back in and remember it, because that's how what we're designed for. Where most of us are like magnificent Stradivariuses that have been terribly mishandled. And we're just out of tune, and we can, because the body remembers and knows its own coherent expression. It'll just
Mm-hmm.
use the simple tuning fork to bring itself to order. And so we just help to rewire. One of the things I call myself is a bioelectrician. I'm like, oh, you're all wired into this story. And now we're going to sort of in layers rewire you into a more centered, true expression of yourself. So there's
Mm-hmm.
also a little bit of, for me as a practitioner, and everybody works differently who's a biofield tuner, but I'm kind of a coach and helping people to reflect, this is what you've been believing. It's not true. This is where your mind goes. And so we adjust the body back into order and then keep supporting it, just like in chiropractic, right? You don't get one chiropractic adjustment and you're good for the rest of your life, right? Any more than you get one oil change in your car. And
Mm-hmm.
and so we do have to work in layers of helping people to unwire from their pain bodies and their victim stories and their traumas and rewire them back into their potential.
So in doing this, and we're bringing coherence, and here a person sits now in a tuned biofield, and they recognize that they've been having some ways of thinking or some perceptions inside of their entanglement in the world, and it's created some distortions. And now they're aware that I need to release some of these distortions, and now I've been set because I've been tuned up. Um, what would we have someone focus on differently? Instead of just saying, I know I need to let go of this idea of unworthiness, what could we have them focus toward instead of being now aware of what I need to let go of, what do I bring my consciousness to in order to sustain the coherent field and disposition that you've generated from sessions with the tuning forks?
I think it's really simple, and that's just permission to enjoy.
Mm,
Just permission to enjoy, because that's really the other side. When you're neutral and tuned, you're free to, like, "Oh, wow, I made this cup of coffee just right, and I'm sitting out, like, with the birds singing, and I'm just enjoying this moment." I'm letting myself spread out fully into, snug into occupying this moment by myself with my coffee and the birds. I'm fully present with my loved ones. I have a grateful heart. Oh, I want a snack. What am I going to make? Oh, I'm going to make it really yummy. Maybe I want a popsicle, like
we should hang out. We should hang out the rest of the day and have some yummy snacks together.
Yeah. Well, life is really about the all of the small moments of ordinariness,
Mhm.
and whether you're present and enjoying them and grateful for them, and your ability to really show up and be 100% present for
Yeah.
somebody, and not back in your head thinking about your neuroses, right? But to just, like, really be here and be okay with no ants in your
Yeah.
pants. And then when you're like that, you can be more playful, you're more funny, you're more fun to
Mm.
be around, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that, to me, that's the end game of healing, is just more play, more enjoyment, more love, more
Mhm.
appreciation of life. I do think that the media has really corrupted our brains into a lot of inability to be present and enjoy. I think people feel guilty, quite frankly, if they're at liberty to enjoy themselves, enjoy
Mhm.
life. But see,
Mhm.
that's what we're working to get away from, right? Is the
Mm.
guilt. Can you let yourself have that little slice of cheesecake with no guilt?
Mhm.
Can you let yourself just enjoy playing hooky because it's nice outside with no guilt? I think liberating ourselves from guilt, from shame, from shoulds, from not good enoughs, all of that is really liberating yourself into pleasure and enjoyment and gratitude and
Yeah.
peace of mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. It's about being ourselves instead of having an opinion about ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a totally different disposition. One is from the inside of that central channel looking out, and the other is seated out there in those memories trying to look back in from a place of distortion to begin with. And it's riddled with guilt and shame and fear and angst and obsessive thinking, etc. And so this is beautiful. So you spoke about love in the midst of the joy and the allowing yourself to be yourself. And I teach about a greater love, which is this appreciation, a vibrational frequency itself that is not just a sentiment, but a realm, a reality. And to live life from this place is definitely encouraging that sort of disposition, appreciation of the light dancing on the water or the breeze bristling the trees or just witnessing, how the sun is reflecting off of something or the way it feels on your shoulders and just constantly being dialed into this frequency because this frequency dissolves so many of the distortions and the dissonant energies that we're speaking about as something that could perhaps sustain someone's coherence once we're establishing it through meditation or through the breath work that I work with as well, or the removal of subconscious interferences in the practices that I do, and the tuning forks that you're speaking about here. It's all about realigning, connecting with nature and connecting with the true essential self. And a healing happens as a byproduct of that versus going after trying to heal things and having the problem be the focus of our attention, which is a rethink for people. It's a flip for people to begin to think about life in this way. And so when it comes to someone who's riddled with trauma or emotional patterns that are unresolved and they're trying to get into this state where they can appreciate life more and notice when they're not in that seat and then they're working their way back into this fear-based reality. What would you recommend if someone, let's say they had a set of your tuning forks? How would you direct someone to help themselves in a moment like that?
Mhm. Well, first of all, I think it's really important to be patient with yourself because I think sometimes when people set off on the healing path, they think it's like this sort of constant up, 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 or this beautiful continual expansion, and it's really not like that. It's a expand and contract, go a couple steps forward, go back. There's lots of switchbacks and pitfalls on the path. Right. And so I would say, first and foremost, don't resist those contractions. Don't resist the switchbacks. Don't think it should be different. Don't be impatient with your inner child because because it takes time and it's okay. And it's okay to have discomfort surface. It's okay. Just give yourself permission. I mean, what your inner child, what the part of you that's wounded needs a hug. I think a lot of times people are like, "Oh, I need to let this go," or "I need to get rid of that." Well, I'm sorry, but you cannot get rid of your inner child. You can't,
Yes. Right.
she's gonna be with you forever, and when she's fussing, what needs to happen instead of this pushing away or this impatience, maybe what our parents did to us, right? When we were fussing and we weren't allowed to be heard or seen or expressed. So then we parent ourselves in the same way where we're trying to get rid of the fussy thing or just let it go, No.
Mhm.
You actually have to flip that around and draw that part of
Mhm.
yourself in, give it love and patience, be a good parent to whatever part of you is fussy. And
Mhm.
and then be like, "What do you need?" "Do you need a purple popsicle?" Like, "Do we need a walk in the park?" Like, "What do we need right now to feel better?" To comfort
Mhm.
ourselves in the same way that we would comfort a child as a good parent, with
Yeah.
loving patience. And then what we're seeking to do is to integrate that part of ourselves. Right,
Mhm.
in biofield tuning, when I find charge around a particular trauma or memory in the field, I'm not taking that charge and getting rid of it for you. I'm not pulling it away and like throwing it off. Like that's just you. That's you. That's a part of you that's trapped in a place where you weren't seen, weren't heard, couldn't emote, couldn't, right? It's trapped sound. And so in biofield tuning, we bring that energy back into the body and integrate it and help it to become part of the you that is now. Right? So first of all, just being comforting, loving, patient, and thinking integratively instead of letting go, right? I mean, there is a certain tension that we let go of for sure, but that doesn't go off into the universe either. It just goes back into circulation in your body,
Right.
right? So I would say if you have tuning forks, again, just what I showed earlier, like sit with the 222 and and just do a little internal inquiry about what do you really need? Because when we're
Mhm.
often driven by guilt and shame, we're approval seeking, we're over caretaking, we're not having good boundaries, we're not honoring ourselves and whatever our awe is, whatever lights us up. If our
Mhm.
needs weren't met, and we kind of have an underlying belief that we're not worthy of having our needs met. So I guess I'll just take care of everyone else instead.
Yeah.
And you end up sort of spent and empty and sad and, not like a kid that didn't get their needs met. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Right.
having the audacity, to be like, what do I need in order for me to feel ah, and to keep feeling that way and to believe that you are worthy of
Mhm.
that, right? I like the saying I am plenty instead of I am worthy or I am enough. Right? Because
Mhm.
I think when I invite people to say I'm plenty, they're like, yeah, I'm plenty. Like it resonates. And
Yes.
and to honor that part of you too. Yeah.
Mhm. How beautiful. So, we have colleagues that are also in sound healing, vibrational frequency work, that are crystal toning bowls and gong work, and as well as voice therapy, sound vibrations that people generate in toning, all of which go back, millennia in terms of their healing capacity. How do you see the forks in relationship to some of these other modalities?
Well, they can all be used together quite beautifully. There's quite a number of practitioners out there who make use of multiple instruments, right? I
Mhm.
just did the tuning forks for many years. I decided that I wanted to get really good with just one instrument instead of sort of spreading myself out through multiple ones. Plus, I'm terrified of breaking those crystal bowls.
Mhm.
And I don't like lugging things around. Tuning forks are easy because they'll fit in your bag or your backpack, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so uh, they, I would say what makes tuning forks different than those other instruments, the sort of broader sounds, is that sometimes Bobfield tuning is really like surgery in a way. It's very precise. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to find that very specific spot in your field that's 5 feet away from your right hip when you form that belief that you weren't good enough. And I'm going to hang out in that specific spot, broadcasting that vibrational information for as long as it takes for your body to reset itself. Right. So there's a kind of precision that you can accomplish with the tuning forks that you don't with other instruments and the other
Yeah.
ways that they're delivered. So I
Mhm.
think that that's to me because my mind is extremely detail oriented, and so, like, I love that level of granular detail that I can get into, that the way the forks really it's almost like a kind of sonic braille.
Nim
It's a very distinct language where every emotion has a very specific frequency signature. Every pathology has a very specific frequency signature. And so for
Mhm.
me, with almost 3 decades of immersion in it, I'm extremely fluent in the language of vibration. And I can listen to someone's signal for just a few strikes and have complete insight into what is going on in their system because
Mhm.
it's all just a patterned language that's the same from person to person. And even pets and plants speak the same vibrational language. So, really, all of creation around us all speaks the language of vibration, which is really interesting and it's consistent.
Yeah, we're all made of it, right? Just vibrating at different frequencies, which brings us into, our humanity or the animal kingdom, the flora and the fauna. It's all just different vibrational radio stations on this big continuum, this larger spectrum. And I love what you're saying about the precision of the forks. And I think that the gong, it dislodges some major things, and the bowls can work with integration as well on emotional levels. And there's something that is very subtle about the forks that one has to dial into the subtlety of life to appreciate it on a conscious level, but it is impacting us on the subconscious biofield level, whether we can consciously perceive what's happening as easily or not. And I like that because it causes us to lean in. It causes us to want to hear it, to want to be with it, to open up to it. And that brings our conscious mind on board with the coherence and the resonance and the healing, the harmonizing that is taking place. And when our conscious mind is on board with that, it is something that influences our way of managing our consciousness, managing our conscious activity. If we can learn to appreciate the subtle tones and the different frequencies of the forks themselves, just from a listener's standpoint, we also dial into the subtleties of life with people. And we start to sense and feel their subtle field as well. So we can be preemptive in relationship and work with healing and harmonizing dynamics when we're tuned in to these subtle frequencies. So I
Yeah.
really have an appreciation for what you're doing in the world. And I also know this, that when we first established those issues, those premature conclusions that we drew about ourselves that led us to having an opinion about ourselves, like unworthiness or insufficiency in some way, those were subtle energies that we were picking up on in the innocence and purity of our newness here. Thinking about your new granddaughter and what's before her and the blessing that she will have in being able to be supported in maintaining the truth about her field, the truth within her field, simply because she has this sort of subtle support, because those issues begin at a subtle level. So when we're working at these subtle frequencies with thought, with breath, with deep feeling, deep observation inside the body, and then working with these kinds of tools, we have A real opportunity to come into the taproot of it all, to the seed in which it began, that became a distortion that has led to yet another divorce or another job that isn't fulfilling, or just a general dissatisfaction with life and our performance or others' performances in it. And this is what we're wanting to change. And so the Art of Awakening is all about, bringing people to these awarenesses. And I so appreciate what you're doing, Eileen, and that you're doing it playfully and giving permission for having it our way, which is truly essential in the bigger picture. So tell us how people can learn more about you, find you, or whatever's going on in your world right now that you want people to know about.
Mhm. Well, our main website is biofieldtuning.com. You can also visit Biofield Tuning Store, where I make my own tuning forks, a very high quality American made tuning fork with an alloy that isn't available anywhere else, that was custom created by me and my manufacturer for this work. So our tuning forks are truly sound healing instruments. And there's lots of practitioners all over the world. So if you want to experience a session, you can find a practitioner. All work at a distance as well as in person. And I know that's a little hard to believe. I didn't believe it was possible either till I did it and discovered that, wow, you actually can do this. And it works really well too, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And then I have two books, Tuning the Human Biofield and Electric Body, Electric Health. And I have a YouTube channel with, I have a series called Sonic Sundays that is a series of talks and tunings. So that's kind of a good introduction into this world, and 25 free tuning sessions to experience. So lots of ways to dive deeper into this work.
Beautiful. And your website, I will get it posted for people, but
Yeah.
can you just
Biofieldtuning.com.
biofieldtuning.com. Beautiful. So thank you, Eileen. It's always just such a joy and a pleasure to speak with you. And it's been a while since we've been able to have a conversation. So this is very delightful. And it just dovetails so beautifully with so many other things that I am bringing forward in the world and what the Art of Awakening is all about. So thank you so much for being here today
Yeah.
with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Sue.
And before we say goodbye, is there any last thing that you'd like to share, any
Mm,
message to leave in
yeah.
people's hearts?
That's one of my favorite ones to leave. And that is in biofield tuning, early on when I was developing and discovering this work. And what I found was when I helped the noise and the signal to settle down and I amplified the coherent true tone underneath, that everybody, like without exception, was beautiful, amazing, great, like incredible. Like people's souls are truly so amazing. And I would see how people were especially gifted and what it was about them that was especially beautiful. And I would reflect that back to them. And really, without exception, like everyone would kind of look at me shyly and be like, I knew that. Right. So we know our potential. And the thing is that we don't believe in it because we're too busy believing we're not worthy or we're not good enough or whatever kind of, that's all just noise in the signal. Like your knowing that you are a beautiful, amazing human being has gifts and is important to be here is true. And so I just want to encourage you to believe in that knowing that you already have. Yeah.
Mm, beautiful words. Thank you so very much for being here.
Mhm.
And I know our listeners are very appreciative of learning a little bit more about the biofield, the energetic system, and how we can tune it and find coherence and resonance in life because we do. So, to our listeners, thank you again for being here and being part of the Art of Awakening. If this conversation has resonated with you, please share it and subscribe wherever you listen. Until next time, I'm Dr. Sue Morter. Blessings to you all, and namaste. Bye bye for now.